Welcome to Women Know How, a podcast hosted by Sonya.
And Violet, two midlife besties who share how we try to make our way through life's new challenges and opportunities as we navigate through life's second half.
So it's so exciting to finally be here today for our first episode. And we wanted to share a little context about our background and our friendship. We've been friends for more than 30 years. So, translation, we've gone through so many different milestones together from being single to being married, having children, dealing with aging parents, managing careers. And it's really been an incredible experience to have this kind of friendship. And on top of it all, we've been able to maintain this relationship being 1,000 miles away from each other. And you're in Miami, Florida, and I'm in Washington, D.C.
Wow. Yes. And through the years, we've asked ourselves millions of questions about different stages in life and how we enter our second half. And we found ourselves with more questions and fewer answers. So we hope that with Women Know How, we can share our experiences and try to learn how to navigate this second half of life with positivity and authenticity. So here we go.
So, as we were thinking about this podcast for quite some time, one of the topics we were sort of navigating through with no real answers or true guidance was how do we deal with this notion of empty nesting? And I say empty nesting with like a question mark because it looks different in different homes with different families. But the idea is that your children, who you've poured yourself into for decades, are now adults and have moved on to college or to jobs. And sometimes they come home as adults. And, what does that look like? So, I'll say from my perspective, with three children, it's been challenging to find myself in that narrative. Who am I anymore and how do I fill my time? So I know, Violet, your experience is a little different than mine, but maybe you could share a little bit about, what your experience is like.
So I have two daughters. They're both back home. One graduated college, and the other one is still in college but living at home. So the empty nester that I thought I was going to be reversed because they both came back. We're away both at the same time. It was really hard. It was a whole adjustment process, where all of a sudden we had all this chaos going on in the house and the kids and coming and going. And then it was just my husband and I. And you kind of have to like reevaluate how to deal with this new situation.
So
So yeah, and
yeah.
it's not easy,
It,
but
it isn't. It isn't. And it's also a challenge on the spousal relationship, right? So my kids were recently home on a break. They are two of which are out of state college students. And I was so excited when they came home. It felt like literally Christmas was coming, like that feeling of pent up excitement. And then they left and it was a hard reset. So, oh, okay, it's me and my husband. And so now what do we do? And that's such a strange feeling. Like, what do we do? Who are we? Um, and I don't know what the answers are because in my case, it's like there has to be like this reapproachment and a new connection. And it sounds silly, but how do you do that? And I haven't figured that out yet.
well, one of the things that we did and do is we try to create like, let's call it a date night. The two of us do something special, either go out to dinner or watch a movie together, a choice that we both, agreed on. And you kind of just try to stop talking about the kids. We have to try to like think of different things, things that when we dated were a lot of fun. Like even if we went and did a sport together, pickleball, that's so popular now. Not that I played pickleball, but I'm saying like just do something that makes that spark come back, just like when you were dating. And it's hard because we have so much around us and we're so used to our kids that it's hard to not talk about them. But you kind of have to force yourself not to because you got to recreate the special relationship that you had prior to having children.
And what's so hard is if you think about it by sheer numbers. So my husband and I dated more or less about a year and a half before we got married, something like that. But you've poured yourself into your kids for, in my case, 21 years. And now I got to go back and figure out what it was like when we were dating for that year and a half. And
Right.
that's so challenging. And even just the idea, and I love the suggestion of not talking about your kids. We've talked about kids for 21 years. You think about that. It's crazy.
There's nothing else but talking about
I
your kids
know.
because your everyday routine has to do with your kids.
Right.
Like your whole life was balancing your professional life, your marital life, and your children.
Yeah.
So, it's like those juggling acts with the balls, you know.
Yeah. And to be fair, it's almost like, well, it's not almost like, there is like this sadness because there's that loss of that era. And, yesterday I was walking outside with my dogs and I saw a woman with her stroller and her baby. And I'm like, oh my gosh, her best years are ahead of her, kind of thing. And I know that's not true. And I know that there are great years to have in the second half, but it is a loss in some way, because the kids go on and have their life, and you're more of an advisor rather than a caretaker. And, it's almost like you have to deal with that loss too while building the relationship with your spouse.
And we feel it as a loss because like you said, we pour ourselves into our kids. But on the flip side, you're regaining you, the Sonya, the Violet, the women, the independence of what you used to have because you no longer have to put on their shoes. Yeah, you might have to still cook them dinner when they're home, but I'm saying like the responsibility that we had as a mother of younger children is no longer there. So you have this freedom, but like, I don't know what to do with my freedom. You know, I'm,
Exactly right.
I'm focused on my kids. And I know you too, Sonia, like our whole life is them. So it's like, I don't know what to do with myself, but through advice, through people that are in those shoes, they've said, pick up a hobby, some kind of sport or hobby or something that makes you happy and as an independent person as well as not just with your spouse. You have to like figure out what to do with your time when you're not working and your husband's busy. So what do I do? Twiddle my thumbs all day,
No, it's true. I will say there has been a bit of an unexpected highlight, if you will. So it's not all doom and gloom and sad. It's been interesting dealing with the kids on an adult level, because they are adults at this point. And so it's listening to what they're dealing with and not inserting yourself in to be the problem solver. So that's like one thing that I've found to be nice and rewarding. And the other piece is it is really nice just being able to talk to them on a different level. So rather than setting all the rules, because that's what parents are, they're the rule setters.
Mhm.
Um, Now we give them a lot more freedom. I mean, they're out of state. And so, they call and share more, and you have to see them make the decision. So, in a lot of ways, you see the fruits of your labor. And that's sort of fun too.
It's fun and hard
Yeah.
because, when, like I said, my girls live at home. So my older one, she's more independent, comes and goes. The curfew hours no longer exist. It's all about what she wants to do. And as a parent, and my husband and my husband stays up. And basically like you have to juggle that too, where you have to let them go, let them fly the coop because they're now independent people, independent women, and you kind of have to give them their space. So that's a juggling act too, because you're used to parenting and now you just have to, like you said, be an advisor's position. And that's hard.
Yeah. That's really hard. And with kids that are really out of state, when they come home, they
Mhm.
bring the same rules that they use in college to my house. And that's so difficult. And, the truth of the matter is I've just really had to sit back and let it play out. But my son will come home at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so, like your husband, I'm up waiting, worrying. I think
Right.
I worry a little less because generally I know where he's going and who he's with. But the notion that, he comes home at 3 o'clock in the morning is so foreign to me, but you sort of have to embrace it and make it an environment that they want to come home to.
Right. And respect them in their ways because then they want to come home. You still want to always have that open door policy where, they always feel comfortable. They don't want to say, oh, I don't want to go home for winter break because my parents are going to be, torturing me. So there goes that juggling act where you have to kind of give them their space and deal with that separation.
Yeah. And, the other thing, as we sort of talked about taking on a new hobby, the other piece of it that I've experienced, you and I have had this friendship for a long time. We go way back. But I do have bandwidth to bring more people into my life. So to bring more friends into my life, because again, I'm not only being this mom who has to get meals going, laundry done, I have more space. And it's hard also. If my husband and I want to go out on a double date, it's like, oh my gosh, where are the people that we've really grown close with as friends because we really haven't had that time. So that's also another piece of the challenge.
Yeah, that's a huge challenge. The best thing to do is try to find people in your same category of life that their kids have gone away to school and they're empty nesting too, and trying to create new friendships or bringing back old friendships. That's hard. We don't really we don't have that either, Sonia. I feel like it's just my husband and I. We got to figure this out on our own and hopefully bring people around us. But that's where sports or some kind of a hobby. I personally have one day a week where I play mahjong. So
Mhm.
I found that little niche where at least it's just for women, but we have fun together. We look forward to that. And so that's like my personal step to finding things to do.
Yeah.
And Mahjong's a great game, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think that the headline here is I have to take on a hobby. I thought about golf just because I hear that from a lot of people. Of course, we don't live in a year-round warm environment, but yeah, and of course, pickleball. I've heard a lot about that too. So I think it's just a matter of like putting yourself out there when it's really hard and uncomfortable. Let's just call it like it is. I mean, our friends have always focused on the kids. They have been a source of our friendships. Um, Preschool, lower school, middle school, high school, we have been friends with the other parents because of sporting events or, common teachers. And so this is just another factor of empty nesting in this midlife environment. That's just hard, really, really hard. And something I think women need to talk about more openly about the loss and how we fill the void and like, be just really honest about that.
It's so true. It's, and another aspect of creating harmony with your husband is like we still talked about the date nights. Well, also like little vacations,
Mm.
little time away, which, it's hard to do, but even if you do like a staycation where you just find a nice hotel a couple hours away and just drive and go for the weekend and just spend time together, so, and go to dinner, just have that time away from the kids and like dating all over again in a vacation because of course when anyone goes on vacation, you kind of disattach from home, work and all the stresses. Hopefully you can detach from those stresses
Yeah.
and
Hopefully.
enjoy your time and create a little bit of a harmonious relationship with your husband again, which it's a working battle.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not big on New Year's resolutions. I'm really not. But this year I actually did make one, and it was to have more travel or more staycations in my life,
Mhm.
because it's something I enjoy. I enjoy traveling, even if it's just to another state, to a nearby state. I just like getting out of the home environment, although I love my dogs. I have two dogs, and I love them dearly, but
Oh,
I think it's part of the investment. So I'll report back next year. But I was wondering, Violet, if we were, not that we have any true expertise and we haven't conquered this, if we were to give advice to people, women who were soon to be empty nesters, so maybe let's say they're 2 or 3 years away, what do you think your advice would be?
I would tell them to start embracing a hobby, finding the things that make them happy. Because kids come, they'll go, they'll come back for vacation time, and you look forward to those moments. But besides your work, you need to find things to do in those gaps. And like I said, maybe just like Mahjong, a book club, and that whole trying to find girlfriends to hang out with, because us girls like to talk and we make ourselves happy. We have fun together. You and I, Sonia, we could stay on the phone for 2 hours and be cracking up and
Every day.
telling great stories. And
Every day. Yes.
yeah, every day we do this and advice. So really it's about finding yourself, finding the person you were before you had children, before you got married, because you were a fun person back then. So why can't you be that now?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
I think you're right. I think that's really good advice. The one thing I might add to that is clearly you're a different person than you were before you had kids.
true.
And I think the thing to really think about is yes, starting early, starting to expand your group of friends, start investing purposefully more time in your group of friends is
Mhm.
definitely something I would recommend. I feel like I missed that boat completely. And then try to understand, other points of who you are that create your value proposition. So what I'm saying, maybe not in articulating properly, is a lot of the value that I felt that I had myself was built into my children. Um, and, you know, it was just how I saw myself. A lot of it was through work and the rewards there and the rewards of raising children. And so now finding value, that you're creating value, that you are valued through other sources. And so, thinking about those things early, I think could help prevent the sudden shock. And I know when my kids were getting ready for college, I was like, okay, boom, 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 boom. How do you move in? What do you need for college? What do you da, 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 da? And then it's gone. Like
Right.
in an instant. They're off and they don't need you to do that planning for them anymore.
Yeah, and that leaves that big void because you're like, there you go. Your whole life is them, and now they're gone and they have their life, and you're left in limbo. And you're right, that's true. You have to find the value of who you are and what you've put into this world and what you have to offer to your friends, your family, everyone, because we all are wonderful people and we have a lot to offer.
Yeah. And that's easier said than done. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's really a challenge, but it can be overcome. And I think surrounding yourself with the right people who love you and care about you and really expanding your friend group, I think that those are all major contributors to success during this transition.
Yes. Choosing your friends wisely. Like I said, my Mahjong group, that's a whole group of friends. And I have a couple other friends that like to do other things, other book clubs and classes that we like to listen to together. And it makes it a lot of fun. It took a while to do, but I've managed. So I feel like I'm, you know, putting my toes in water where I found a little bit to do and it's making me happy.
Anything surprised you during this phase of life with the kids? Is there anything that you weren't expecting?
I was expecting them to leave and I was expecting them to move on with their lives like everybody does. When I went to school, I wasn't allowed to leave the state or dorm. I could never do that. That was like taboo in my time. My parents would freak out. When I had kids, I always used to say to them, you have to do what's good for you. You have to find the school that's good for you. My children didn't go very far. They stayed in Florida, but they still dormed. And I was happy that they did that because I felt that my parents sheltered me. And as much as I do shelter my children, I was happy for them to learn the independence of going away and finding themselves prior to marriage, where I just, went from college and home to my husband and our life. I kind of push my kids to go, to fly.
What surprised you about that? That you were happy with that decision, or
Was happy for them, not happy for myself because
or-
the
of
void and
course.
everything we've been discussing, the emptiness, and I want my kids with me, but I did want them to learn how to be independent. I'm a very overpowering kind of mother. Like, I'm always on top of them, so they need their space from me. Um, so yeah, I'm glad that they made their choices and then I got back they're back. So I'm even more happy.
Right. No, I get that. I get that. I think in a future podcast, we'll talk a little bit more about our backgrounds and how, our parents were both immigrants. And so how that shapes you as a person. So I think you mentioned that a little bit, but we'll dive into that in another episode for sure. Similarly, as my kids were growing up, I thought, oh, they're definitely going to go to school locally. There's no question. And when it got to it, I was like, okay, you're going to go to the best school you can get into. As long as we can afford it and we can make it work financially, that's where you'll go. And so I feel like in a lot of ways, I almost pushed them out the door. And so that was a bit of a surprise. And now here I am left holding the bag of what, my husband and I put together, but it's really interesting. You have plans and God laughs because for their whole existence, they were going to go to school locally. And now they're both at schools in the Midwest. I never would have expected that. I think the other thing that sort of has surprised me is this renewed focus on work. So, where I felt for years that my mind share was split between my children, my family, and my job. And I felt like, honestly, I wasn't really doing either one of them well because when I was working, I was thinking about what I needed to do for the family. And when I was with the family, I was thinking about what I wasn't doing at work and I needed to do at work. And now I feel more focused professionally than ever before. And I know we both have different career paths, but I wonder if you had that experience and maybe it's a sense of relief in some way.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely agree with that. Like where I feel like because our kids are older and they're more independent, you kind of are able to release them. So, it gives you more focus on your job and where you don't have to be with the back of your head thinking of the kids and what they're doing. And, so it's just part of progression of life where they've grown up, they're independent and you taught them well. We've done our job as parents and now we get to, see the fruits of our labor.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's in a lot of ways, it's guilt free, where I carried guilt for a lot of years because I wasn't around and I traveled a lot for work. But now I don't have that guilt. And again, that's freeing. And it's something I have enjoyed actually. I have no guilt regarding what I do with my time because I can make those decisions.
Right. You have to be guilt-free. You're not allowed to be guilty, Sonia. You,
No,
your
more
job,
guilt.
no more guilt. We both have put 100% effort into our married life, children's, and we have to be proud of ourselves as mothers and wives and just now find what's going to make us happy in this middle age and, our new chapter, our new road of fulfillment to be a happy person and continue life.
And I think one of the reasons, Violet, we wanted to tackle this episode, this first episode of Women Know How, is really to bring this topic to the forefront because it impacts us women in so many different ways that, frankly, I wasn't prepared for. Not only is it, in my case, the loss of the kids who have moved on, it's this, and I know we'll delve into this topic at another time, it's this reconnection with the spouse
Mhm.
because again, for many, many years, we were not so connected. We were more partners in child rearing. And maybe that's not the case for everybody, but that was a lot of the case for me because with work and with kids, it was just, and aging parents, which again, we'll talk about that as well. That also took a chunk of time. So I don't want to minimize how hard it is to have that reconnection or to try to seek it. It's something I think about every day, how to do, um, because I don't think it's easy. Um,
No,
I just
I don't think it's easy either.
it's
It's
not easy. It's not easy, and so just just the idea that we're talking about this is something that I think we both felt was important.
absolutely very important. And we're not the only ones that feel this way. There are plenty of women out there in our shoes and they feel the same way and it's it's a good topic to talk about and it's good to express ourselves because I think people are like, lighting their light bulb saying, yeah, agree with these women.
Yeah, and that's really what we're hoping to do with this podcast is to highlight some of the issues that, women midlife are facing openly, candidly, with authenticity and hopefully fun and joy, because it has been great and it will be great as we evolve and, take on these new parts of our lives that we weren't really expecting. And we don't have all the answers. We're not suggesting we do. We're just setting a platform and we want to hear from our listeners. We want suggestions. We want to be able to have an ongoing dialogue about some of these topics.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of different ways to help yourselves through this middle age time. And for example, like taking a yoga class, that can be something that really helps women. And these are all suggestions, and we're going to continue with good suggestions and hopefully have guest speakers come in professionally and talk about subjects that will help us grow as women in this middle age time.
The one thing we didn't talk about today, Violet, which I feel really strongly about, is this idea of mental health.
Yep,
Because when you as an individual are not feeling good about yourself and that can be a byproduct of your kids leaving the house, so you don't feel good about yourself, it does impact your mental health. So I think one of the topics we will explore more deeply are the mental health implications that you face later in life as well.
absolutely. And menopause itself can bring depression onto women. So you really have to fight your way through that. And like I just mentioned, yoga, meditation is also another way. We've talked about that, Sonya. And, there are many things that you really have to do to help yourself get through these hormonal times of our life as women that the changes can really, like you said, create mental health problems and also body conscious problems. So there's a lot of things that you take for granted. You don't realize as a middle-aged woman what we're going to go through and what we are going through.
Well, we're certainly going to unpack menopause. I mean, that we're going to unpack menopause, perimenopause, and all the pieces of that puzzle that we discover daily, which are not the same for any two women, but certainly worthy of a robust conversation.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to talk about all the pros and cons of aging and more pros, hopefully. And,
And
you
I
know,
think there are definitely pros. I mean, I
yeah,
would just highlight, there's a sense of freedom that I
absolutely.
haven't had in a long time. So, I think there's definitely pros. Um, So, I guess with that, that's a wrap for our show today. We hope you've enjoyed this time with us. We've enjoyed sharing with you. Again, we hope to hear from you. We look forward to seeing you next time on Women Know How. Be sure to subscribe to Women Know How on YouTube or Spotify and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Women Know How Pod. And with that, have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye. See you next time.
See you next time.